Ikitens and Femcells. So we have 4 characters in the upcoming Genshin Impact version banners. We have the new Ineffa, Mualani, Chasca, and finally Citlali. It can be a little hard to choose between them if you're planning to get a character. So in this video I'll be comparing all of them, listing the pros and cons, and then finally telling you which one you should choose depending on your account situation and what you need. But yeah, without further ado, let's begin. Alright, so first of all, starting off with the new Ineffa. Ineffa is mainly going to be a support slash buffer to the new reaction, or like the creator actually to the new reaction. It's called the Lunar Charged, and it's basically a buffed Electro Charged. But yeah, for her pros, obviously she's going to have a unique new reaction. It's called Lunar Charged. It's going to scale with attack and crit and not Elemental Mastery, and that's pretty unique actually. Most of the reactions we ever had just scale with Elemental Mastery and not crit rate or attack or anything like that. So you being able to build a character with attack and crit rate and then also buffing their reactions at the same time is going to be pretty good and valuable. And this reaction is most likely going to be in the new upcoming like Not Cry meta. So yeah, she's like the first pillar of a new meta, you can say, probably. Second pro is that she has good off-field electro damage and application. She can apply electro and deal damage too, which is pretty good, just as like any normal electro off-fielder or applier. She can do that, which is pretty good. That's also going to help her apply her reaction because it's basically electro charged. So just having hydros on field and having her applying electro on field is going to be pretty good. She's going to have good support. She's going to have a shield obviously, which is pretty good. She's also going to have elemental mastery buffs for the team, which buffs the reactions even more, which is all pretty good. And then finally, the last pro is that she has flexible teammates, not flexible team types. We're going to talk about that more in a little bit, but usually you just want to play her in electro charged teams. But in terms of teammates for electro charged teams, you can play her with a lot of characters. As long as you have like hydros there, it should be fine with a lot of teams and teammates. So she's fairly flexible in terms of like her teammates. Now moving on to her cons, the first one is the same thing that I just said, which is that you need to play her in electro charged teams in general. She does have a lot of teammates in electro charged teams, but her team types are going to be limited to basically just electro charged. So if you don't like electro charged, or you just don't want to play it, or you don't have the teammates for it in general, she might not be the one for you. And the last con about her is that she has kind of an unclear future. I mean, she's expected to be like in the new meta, but we still never know. She's the first character coming out of Not Cry, and we just don't know anything about the upcoming meta basically. Whether or not she's gonna fit pretty well in it, whether she's gonna be like the base and every new character is gonna like add to her value, or she's gonna be power crept by upcoming Not Cry characters, for example. She most likely won't, and she will probably be good, but we still don't know. So yeah, that's kind of a con about her. It might be safer to get her on her rerun instead of now if this is what you're thinking about. Alright, now moving on to the second character on this patch, which is going to be Mualani. Mualani is just going to be a Hydro main DPS, that's pretty much it really. She's going to deal like explosive nuke attacks, and that's pretty much it. For pros, she's going to have super good damage and also AoE. She's one of the top DPSs in the game, probably like an S tier DPS or maybe A tier at least, which is pretty good. You can clear everything with Mualani, and she's going to deal huge amounts of damage. She can rival the best DPS in the game very easily. The second good thing about Mualani is that she's going to be pretty easy to build. All you need is going to be HP, and you also have a lot of crit already from the Natlan set, so her build is going to be much easier in terms of like artifacts and stuff like that, which is pretty good. But other than that, she's a simple character really, just a Hydra on field hyper carry DPS, and that's about it. So that's like what you want from a DPS. That's all the pros you'd want. Just good damage, easy to build, that's it. Now moving on to her cons, the biggest and only con in my opinion is that her playstyle in general is going to be a little bit clunky. That's going to be in many ways. For example, not all pyros can apply like the right amount of pyro for her, so you'll need like the pyro MC or Moika, for example, for you to work her properly and vaporize most of her hits. And if you don't vaporize all of her hits, then you're gonna lose a lot of DPS, and that's also a problem with her. Her DPS is gonna be concentrated on like 3 or 4 hits, and if you don't hit them perfectly, then your DPS is gonna fall like dramatically. So you need to be careful and precise with them. If you miss one, or you don't vaporize it correctly or anything like that, or you don't move correctly, it's because you'll need to like walk into enemies, then your DPS is gonna fall by a long shot. So she's not easy to play. She's a little bit clunky. You can easily get used to her, but in general, she's definitely not an easy character to play, I would say. But it's not a terrible con. She's still one of the best characters in the game. Now, moving on to the third character on this patch, which is going to be Chasca. Chasca is going to be an Anemo main DPS, but she's Anemo just by name, basically. She's not going to be dealing almost any Anemo damage. Most of her damage is going to be like converted to other elements: Pyro, Cryo, Electro, Hydro. She's going to convert her bullets into elemental damage based around which teammates she has. For her pros, she's going to have a unique damage conversion that's going to make her basically every type of DPS. So in content where like a Pyro DPS is better, you can focus on giving her more Pyro teammates, and she's going to be dealing Pyro damage. In content where you need Hydro, for example, or Cryo, you can do the same, and so on. That's going to make her very versatile in terms of like elemental content. You need to like break shields and stuff like that. She's going to be super versatile, which is super good. Second pro is that she's going to have pretty high damage. That's just it, really. Her damage is going to be pretty good. I would say she's like an A tier DPS, which is super good, especially for right now. She's better than a lot of other DPSs, and you can clear every single piece of content with just Chasca. And the last pro about her is that she's easy to play in terms of like what you'll be doing on the field. Basically, you're just gonna pop your skill burst when you have it, and then just stay charge attacking from above. You're not gonna do anything. Mostly, you're not gonna be interrupted even or anything like that. Just literally charge attack, pop the bullets, repeat again and again until you run out of time. That's pretty much it. The complications with her are mostly in like team building and understanding her rotations and stuff like that. But once you get it, she's pretty easy to play. Now, moving on her cons. The first con about her is that she's gonna have some inconsistency in terms of damage. She's never good for a main DPS. You need to be, knowing how much damage you're getting in general. But with Chasca, that can change a little bit. Some bullets might switch to like random elements, which can lower your damage depending on what buffs you have and stuff like that. And their order is also kind of random, so it's gonna change which reactions happen, for example. So it can mess with like your auras. If, for example, if you want to melt, sometimes you might get reverse melt, for example, which is not always as good. So yeah, she has a couple of inconsistencies. In general, her damage is not gonna always be the same, which is not good for a main DPS. But either way, mostly she's always gonna be dealing decent damage. And the last con about her is that she can also be a little bit clunky to play, but with only some characters. For example, the Bennett Circle, which is probably one of her best supports. It can be hard to stay within the range for you to get like the buffs and stuff like that, which is not good. She has like an unorthodox playstyle, which can be clunky for some people to play, but it's not that bad. It's not that bad at all. You can get used to it pretty easily. And now finally for the last character on this patch, which is going to be Citlali. Citlali is just a cryo support, very versatile cryo support. And yeah, that's pretty much it for her pros. She's going to be a very versatile sub DPS slash support. She can do a lot of things. She can give you a shield. She can give you off-field cryo application and damage. She can give you a resistance shred for cryo and hydro and a lot of other things. It's going to be super versatile. You can do a lot of things with Citlali, and just equipping her on a team is going to give a lot usually. She's also from Natlan, so she can consume nice old points and synergize pretty well with a lot of like Natlan characters. So yeah, she's gonna be very versatile, offering a lot of things, and that's gonna be always super good for support. Second pro about Citlali is that she's gonna be super easy to build. Usually you just need elemental mastery. She scales with elemental mastery on basically everything. So yeah, she's gonna be pretty easy to build in terms of like getting artifacts and weapons and stuff like that. And yeah, that's all you want really from a support. Pretty versatile, they offer good supports, and they're easy to build. For her cons, her support might be a little mid in some cases. For example, the shield is not really the strongest. Cryo application is a little slow. Damage is not the highest, obviously. Obviously, she's not going to be the best at all of them and be able to do all of them. She's more of like a jack of all trades character, master of none. But I do think she's still pretty good in most of them too. Like, her shield is not weak, it's just not the strongest. She's fine in my opinion. I still think she's probably one of the best supports in the game. But her second con is that outside of cryo teams or like freeze teams, maybe some melt teams, she's not gonna have like super good value, which is normal too. It's fine, but that's definitely something to consider. She's not like a very universal support or anything like that. Alright, so now that we listed all the characters and we know their pros, cons, what they do, let me give you guys a final conclusion on who should you wish for. Generally this patch is going to be pretty easy to split. The first half is going to be, do you need a main DPS? If yes, then obviously your options are going to be Mualani or Chasca. Choosing between them is going to be a little hard in my opinion, but you need to know this. First of all, in terms of damage, they're going to be around the same tier in general. I think Mualani might deal a little more damage, but it depends on like the situation. Chasca might deal a little more damage sometimes and stuff like like that. In general, I would just consider them to be the same tier. So let's just say they're the same damage. The difference is not going to be that big at all. But personally, I think Chasca is a little more flexible than Mualani in general. I think she has many more teammate options where you can just slap on the team and they're just going to work. She has a few key supports, for example, like Bennett or Fiorina. They're going to be super good if you can have them. But even without them, she's going to be pretty flexible. Like you can use a lot of characters, whether they're Electros, Cryos, Hydros, Pyros, whatever. Just use any of this sort of supports and they're going to work with Chasca. So I do think she's more flexible than Mualani. Mualani has very limited like options. She can only be played in like vaporized teams and with few selected teammates. So she's definitely not as flexible as Chasca. And as I said before, I think Chasca, in my opinion, is easier to play than Mualani. Mualani is a little bit clunky and not on like the good way where you can just like get used to her. At least in my opinion, that's what I'm experiencing. So yeah, I do like Chasca's playstyle much better in my personal opinion. I think it's much like more comfortable to play. But I do realize that's subjective. I know some people think Mualani is more fun, like you're gliding around and stuff like that. And with Chasca, you're just like charge attacking and repeating, but that's subjective. But yeah, if you need a main DPS, it depends. If you have Mualani supports, for example, like Muika, did not say just go for Mualani. If not, then you can go for Chasca. But in general, personally, I do prefer Chasca better. But as I said before, at the end of the day, they're both around the same tier. So just go to whoever you like. Now for supports, it's going to be a little bit more complicated. Obviously, we're going to have Ineffa and then Citlali. I do think they're just different, simply, even though they're both supports. But it's going to be pretty easy to decide which one you should get. Ineffa is more like a good new electrocharged support. And if you're planning to invest in like the not crying new meta and stuff like that, or you're planning to try it out, then just go Ineffa. If you like electrocharged teams, you like her playstyle, you need an electro support, electro shield, which is pretty rare, then just go for Ineffa. Citlali, on the other hand, is just a good cryo support, especially for like freeze teams or like Natlan DPSs and stuff like that. She can be a very good support, but the thing is, if you don't need her, then she's gonna be like useless. Outside of like freeze teams or some melt teams, usually Citlali is not gonna be the character you'd want to use. So yeah, if you have these type of teams, then go for it. You have like Moika, for example, especially, or Skirk or something like that, then just go for Citlali. If not, then just don't go for it. I think they're both skippable, both Citlali and Ineffa, if you don't need them or don't want them. But yeah, if you want electrocharged, you want to tap into the not crying meta early, then go Ineffa. If you want a good cryo support, then go Citlali. If you want none, then just skip this patch altogether. But yeah, tell me who you guys are getting in the comments. Guys, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.